You know the name BP, one of the biggest energy companies on the planet. And a few years back, they made this huge promise, one that really shook up the whole industry. They were going green. But here's the thing. Behind all those shiny ads and big press conferences, the money, well, the money seems to be telling a completely different story. So we're going to do what we do best. We're launching a financial investigation to see what's really going on. Let's get into it. And this was their big rallying cry, right? Reimagine energy. You saw it everywhere. And look, this wasn't just some clever tagline. It was a promise to you, to me, to the whole world, that one of the absolute giants of oil was changing course, pivoting to a clean, sustainable future. That's the story they wanted us all to buy into. Which brings us to the big question, the one at the heart of our whole investigation today. Is that what's actually happening behind the curtain? I mean, for a company built on 100 years of oil and gas, saying you're gonna change is one thing. But does the reality match the rhetoric? We're about to find out. All right, so to really get what's happening, we've got to rewind the clock a bit, back to 2020. This was the big moment. This is when BP came out and announced this radical, game-changing new strategy. They told everyone they weren't just an oil company anymore. No, they were now an integrated energy company, and they were going to lead the charge into a net zero future. Now, this whole plan was championed by their CEO at the time, a guy named Bernard Looney. And honestly, it was stunningly ambitious. They pledged to go net zero by 2050. They were going to massively scale up their low-carbon energy business. But the real headline grabber, the one that made everyone's jaw drop, was this: a promise to cut their oil and gas production by a staggering 40% by 2030. You have to understand, for a company like BP, that's not just a small change. That's a full-blown revolution. So on paper, it looked perfect, right? The ultimate green transformation, a century-old giant finally seeing the light. But as you know from any financial investigation, you quickly learn that promises, they're one thing. The flow of actual cash, that's something else entirely. And the paper trail here, well, it definitely leads us down a very different path. So let's do what we do best on this channel. Let's follow the money. Let's forget the fancy mission statements and the PR spin for just a minute. Where is BP actually putting its billions and billions of dollars? Because the answer to that question, it reveals everything about what this company truly cares about. And boom, this one chart pretty much tells you the whole story. In 2024, BP invested $1.6 billion into its low-carbon business. Okay, sounds like a lot, right? But then you look at the other bar. In the exact same year, they poured over 6 times that amount, a cool $10 billion, into their good old-fashioned oil and gas operations. The numbers just don't lie. This doesn't look like a pivot. This looks like business as usual, with a side of green marketing. Okay, so we know where the investment money is going, but to really get the full picture, we need to ask another question. Where are the profits coming from that fund the whole operation? Which part of this business is the real cash engine driving the whole machine? And here is where the financial reality just smacks you in the face. Forget the green ads for a second. Look at this. The single biggest slice of BP's profit, we're talking nearly 42%, comes directly from producing oil. And that gas and low-carbon division they talk so much about, yeah, that's the smallest piece of the profit pie. The takeaway here is absolutely crucial. The old-school business of drilling for oil is the cash cow that's funding the entire company, and that includes funding the massive PR campaign about how they're going green. Now, here's where the story takes another turn, and it gets really interesting. Because while all this was happening, this quiet financial pivot back to the core business, another story was unfolding inside the company. A story of aggressive, sweeping cost-cutting. And this wasn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It came with a very, very real human cost. The target they set was just massive: $2 billion in cost reductions by the end of 2026. The official line, of course, was that they wanted to become a simpler, more focused, higher-value company. But in the world of corporate finance, you learn that language like that is often code for something a little less pleasant. So what did it really mean? It meant this: 10,600. That's the number of jobs, both employees and contractors, that are being cut to hit that $2 billion target. Think about that. While the public story was all about a bright green future, a deep and pretty painful restructuring was happening behind closed doors. And to put that into perspective for you, this isn't just trimming around the edges. This represents a 15% cut to BP's entire corporate office workforce. That is a huge number. It signals a fundamental reshaping of the company from the inside out, and it's all being done in the name of efficiency and, you guessed it, profitability. Okay, so we've looked at the financials, we've looked at the job cuts, but if you really want to understand where a company is headed, you have to look at who's sitting in the corner office. And at BP, the CEO's office has basically become a revolving door, and it reveals this deep internal conflict over the very soul of the company. Just look at this timeline. It is pure chaos at the top. First, in September 2023, Bernard Looney, the guy who was the architect of the whole green strategy, he's out. Gone, abruptly. Then his successor, Murray Auchincloss, comes in and starts steering the ship back toward oil. But then, boom, less than 2 years later, he's gone too. The instability is just off the charts. And what's their solution to all this? Bring in a total outsider to clean house. And this comparison right here, it says absolutely everything. On one side, you had Bernard Looney, the visionary who was pushing this green, integrated energy company strategy. And on the other side, you have the incoming CEO, Meg O'Neill. Now get this, she's the first external CEO in BP's entire history. She's a 23-year veteran of ExxonMobil, and she is known for being a hard-nosed operator who is laser-focused on financial discipline and shareholder value. I mean, the message from the board could not be any clearer. And you don't even have to read between the lines on this one. The company's own chairman, Albert Manifold, he tells you exactly why they hired her. Listen to the keywords here: relentless focus and financial discipline. This isn't a guess. The pivot away from the green promise and back to the profitable core business, it's intentional, and it's being driven from the very, very top. Okay, so we've followed the money, we've seen the human cost, and we've witnessed the chaos in the boardroom. Now it's time to connect all the dots and deliver the final verdict in our investigation into BP's green promise. So here's the story our investigation has uncovered, step by painful step. First, you get this beautiful, ambitious net zero promise that gets the whole world's attention. But then, step 2, the financial data reveals the company's money is still overwhelmingly flowing into old-school fossil fuels. Step 3, to juice the profits even more, massive cost-cutting and layoffs get rolled out. And finally, step 4. A brand new leader with a classic oil and gas pedigree is brought in from the outside to cement this new, or should I say old, direction. The promise? It's been systematically taken apart piece by piece. And when you boil it all down, it really just leads to one final, unavoidable question. The story of BP gives us a pretty clear, if maybe uncomfortable answer. When a company's public promise clashes with its private profits, which one do you think usually wins?